Mandy and I welcome you back to day 118 of Reading Our Bible 365. Today we're back in the Old Testament. We're going to do Exodus chapters 13 to 16. I color verses I love in Exodus in yellow because it's part of the Torah, or the Pentateuch part of the Old Testament, which is the first 5 books of the Bible. There's 187 chapters in this section, and Exodus has 40 chapters. Exodus chapter 13, Consecration of the Firstborn. The Lord said to Moses, "Consecrate to me every firstborn male. The first offspring of every womb among the Israelites belongs to me, whether man or animal." Then Moses said to the people, "Commemorate this day, the day you came out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery, because the Lord brought you out of it with a mighty hand. Eat nothing containing yeast. Today, in the month of Abib, you are leaving. When the Lord brings you into the land of the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Hivites, and Jebusites, the land he swore to your forefathers to give you, a land flowing with milk and honey, you are to observe this ceremony in this month. For 7 days eat bread made without yeast, and on the 7th day hold a festival to the Lord. Eat unleavened bread during those 7 days, nothing with yeast in it to be seen among you, nor shall any yeast be seen anywhere within your borders. On that day tell your son, I do this because of what the Lord did for me when I came out of Egypt. This observance will be for you like a sign on your hand and a reminder on your forehead that the law of the Lord is to be on your lips. For the Lord brought you out of Egypt with his mighty hand. You must keep this ordinance at the appointed time, year after year. After the Lord brings you into the land of the Canaanites and gives it to you as he promised on oath to you and your forefathers, you are to give over to the Lord the first offspring of every womb. All the firstborn males of your livestock belong to the Lord. Redeem with a lamb every firstborn donkey. But if you do not redeem it, break its neck. Redeem every firstborn among your sons. In the days to come, when your son asks you, what does this mean? Say to him, with a mighty hand, the Lord brought us out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. When Pharaoh stubbornly refused to let us go, the Lord killed every firstborn in Egypt, both man and animal. This is why I sacrifice to the Lord the first male offspring of every womb, and redeem each of my firstborn sons. And it will be like a sign on your hand and a symbol on your forehead that the Lord brought us out of Egypt with his mighty hand." With these actions, too, came opportunities for the Israelites to teach their children the truths about God and what he had done for them. The redemption of the firstborn was a reminder that God had spared Israel's firstborn when he killed Egypt's. Similarly, the acts of baptism and the Lord's Supper provide Christian parents visual pictures to help them instruct their children about the redemptive work of God through Jesus Christ. Taking advantage of such opportunities is part of how we bring children up in the training and instruction of the Lord. When Pharaoh let the people go, God did not lead them on the road through the Philistine country, though that was shorter, for God said, if they face war, they might change their minds and return to Egypt. So God led the people around by the desert road toward the Red Sea. The Israelites went up out of Egypt armed for battle. Moses took the bones of Joseph with him because Joseph had made the sons of Israel swear an oath. He said, God will surely come to your aid, and then you must carry my bones up with you from this place. After leaving Succoth, they camped at Etham on the edge of the desert. By day, the Lord went ahead of them in a pillar of cloud to guide them on their way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light, so that they could travel by day or night. Neither the pillar of cloud by day nor the pillar of fire by night left its place in front of the people. I have a note there. That's a faithful God. My note here says, God felt if they did the short way, they would see the Philistines and they would want to go back to the land of slavery. I love so many things in here. He has them tell their children, this is why we sacrifice a lamb, the firstborn of every lamb, every womb, everyone that gives birth, man and animal. You need to sacrifice that, or with your son, sacrifice a lamb in honor of him, to show everything back up to God, right? Because they want to remember what happened back there. I mean, one generation away, they could forget, well, why do we need God? Who was a slave? We don't remember anything about that for 400 years. But if they keep doing this year after year to do this festival, they will remind their children. I kind of feel like in America, we need to remind our kids. We need to have like Pioneer Day or something where we remember people walked with their feet, or in bumpy wagons, or on horses, miles and miles to settle this land. A lot of people died. They gave up a lot so we could have the freedoms here in America. If we don't teach the next generation, they do get lazy and they get soft. So I also love how he led them all the way around, right? He didn't go the shortcut through the Philistines because he didn't want them to be afraid and say, oh, let's just go back and be a slave again. So he took them the long way, and now we're going to cross the Red Sea. Though the departing Israelites had assumed battle formation, God knew they were not ready to face opposition, so he led them toward the Red Sea along the road of the wilderness, that is, into the Sinai Peninsula. God led his people with a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. In keeping with Joseph's wishes, Moses took the bones of Joseph with him so that they could bury him in the land God had promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Exodus chapter 14. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Tell the Israelites to turn back and encamp near Pi-hahiroth, between Migdol and the sea. They are to encamp by the sea, directly opposite Baal-zephon. Pharaoh will think the Israelites are wandering around in the land in confusion, hemmed in by the desert, and I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and he will pursue them. But I will gain glory for myself through Pharaoh and all his army, and the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord." So the Israelites did this. When the king of Egypt was told that the people had fled, Pharaoh and his officials changed their minds, again, about them and said, "What have we done? We have let the Israelites go and have lost their services." Yeah, they don't want to work. So he had his chariot made ready, and he took his army with him. He took 600 of the best chariots, along with all the other chariots of Egypt, with officers over them all. The Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, so that he pursued the Israelites who were marching out boldly. The Egyptians, all Pharaoh's horses and chariots, horsemen and troops, pursued the Israelites and overtook them as they camped by the sea near Pi-hahiroth, opposite Baal-zephon. As Pharaoh approached, the Israelites looked up, and there were the Egyptians marching after them. They were terrified and cried out to the Lord. They said to Moses, "Was it because there was no graves in Egypt that you brought us to the desert to die? What have you done to us by bringing us out of Egypt? Didn't we say in Egypt, 'Leave us alone, let us serve the Egyptians'? It would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the desert." That whole part is really funny to me because that's not what they were saying. They weren't saying, "Leave us alone." They were like, "Get us out of here. We're being slaves. This is a terrible time." I mean, it's funny how quick people just flip, And also, it's just hard to be a leader. Moses answered the people, "Do not be afraid. Stand firm, and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today. The Egyptians you see today, you will never see again. The Lord will fight for you. You only need to be still." I have a note out here. "Be still and know that I am God." Then the Lord said to Moses, "Why are you crying out to me? Tell the Israelites to move on. Raise your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea to divide the water so that the Israelites can go through the sea on dry ground. I will harden the hearts of the Egyptians so that they will go in after them, and I will gain glory through Pharaoh and all of his army, through his chariots and his horsemen. The Egyptians will know that I am the Lord when I gain glory through Pharaoh, his chariots, and his horsemen." Then the angel of God, who had been traveling in front of Israel's army, withdrew and went behind them. The pillar of cloud also moved from in front and stood behind them, coming between the armies of Israel and Egypt. I have out here, "It's all going to be to God's glory." My note says, "The pillar is protecting the Israelites." Coming between the armies of Egypt and Israel. Throughout the night, the cloud brought darkness to one side and light to the other, so neither went near the other all night long. Moses stretched out his hand, I have out here, he obeyed, over the sea, and all that night the Lord drove the sea back with a strong east wind and turned it into dry land. The waters were divided, and the Israelites went through the sea on dry ground, with a wall of water on their right and on their left. And I put, not even muddy shoes or sandals. I have a great note up here. Reverse. People were afraid of the sea in front of them and Pharaoh behind them, so they wanted to reverse. When our fear is greater than our faith, we also want to go in reverse. Neutral. Stand still. We get inward focus and we get frozen. Forward. This is what this Exodus 14 chapter is all about. Go forward with God. The Egyptians pursued them, and all Pharaoh's horses and chariots and horsemen followed them into the sea. During the last watch of the night, the Lord looked down from the pillar of fire and cloud at the Egyptian army and threw it into confusion. He made the wheels of their chariots come off so that they had difficulty driving. And the Egyptians said, "Let's get away from the Israelites. The Lord is fighting for them against Egypt." Okay, to me, that's a really funny line because he's been doing that for weeks, right? Or however long the plagues were. I mean, over and over, God did a plague and they were like, you know what? Let's just let these people go because we can see God's fighting for them. Then they harden their heart and they go back on their word. And then God did another plague. And so over and over, they're saying that the Lord is fighting for them. But I think this time they finally realized the Lord is fighting for them. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand over the sea so the waters may flow back over the Egyptians and their chariots and horsemen." Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and at daybreak the sea went back to its place. The Egyptians were fleeing toward it, and the Lord swept them into the sea. The water flowed back and covered the chariots and horsemen, the entire army of Pharaoh that had followed the Israelites into the sea. The water flowed back and covered the chariots and horsemen, the entire army of Pharaoh that had followed the Israelites into the sea. Not one of them survived. Wow. But the Israelites went through the sea on dry ground with a wall of water on their right and on their left. That day the Lord saved Israel from the hands of the Egyptians, and Israel saw the Egyptians lying dead on the shore. And when the Israelites saw the great power the Lord displayed against the Egyptians, the people feared the Lord and put their trust in him and in Moses, his servant. Just as the people started to panic, caught between death by drowning and death by Egyptian will, Moses declared, "Don't be afraid, stand firm, and see the Lord's salvation. The Lord will fight for you, and you must be quiet." Though their fear made them want to run, the Lord told them to stand firm. You too can choose not to fear by fulfilling your obligation as one under the protection of God, by acting in spite of your fear. Notice that God didn't give Israel a plan of attack. He told them to see his salvation because he would fight for them. Their eyes were on the Egyptians and the sea, which means they were looking in the wrong places. They needed to shift their attention away from their fears in order to recognize that the Lord would indeed fight on their behalf. This is a reminder that when you're boxed in by a dilemma, you must trust in the Lord. Look with the eyes of faith to see him working through your circumstances. As the Egyptians tried to escape, the Lord caused the sea to flow back into its normal position. The water covered the chariots and horsemen and the entire army. Not even one of them survived. Not even one. God is so good. The Egyptian king, who had defied the God of creation, had his army wiped out by God's creation. I love that. Israel, however, walked to safety at the other side of the sea. When they saw the great power that the Lord used against the Egyptians, the people feared the Lord. Likewise, when you receive deliverance from a crisis, you should remember that the correct response to it is to fear the Lord. Take him and his work on your behalf seriously. Give him the praise he's due and submit to his agenda. So that's a good reminder for us, right? When we're in a hard time, kind of feel like we're boxed in on both sides. Remember, God's in control. And if our eyes are on him, I love that. The Israelites were looking at the sea and they thought, well, we can't cross that. We can't swim across. We got all our stuff. And they're looking behind them and they're like, here comes Pharaoh and his army. So they're boxed in. But they were looking like left and right and all around. They forgot to look up. We need to look up. Keep our eyes on him. I know I've gone through some tough times too. And it's like, I've learned don't be looking around at all that. Just look up. Keep your eyes on him, even though it might take a long time, might take years, might take way longer than you think, and you may have to go way around somewhere that you weren't planning on going. But if you just keep your eyes on him, the answer is coming, and he is faithful to see us through. Exodus chapter 15, the song of Moses and Miriam. Then Moses and the Israelites sang this song to the Lord. I will sing to the Lord, for he is highly exalted. The horse and its rider he has hurled into the sea. The Lord is my strength and my song. He has become my salvation. He is my God, and I will praise him. My father's God, and I will exalt him. The Lord is a warrior. The Lord is his name. Pharaoh's chariots and his army he has hurled into the sea. The best of Pharaoh's officers are drowned in the Red Sea. The deep waters have covered them. They sank to the depths like a stone. Your right hand, O Lord, was majestic in power. Your right hand, O Lord, shattered the enemy. Yes, he did. In the greatness of your majesty, you threw down those who opposed you. You unleashed your burning anger. It consumed them like stubble. By the blast of your nostrils, the waters piled up. The surging waters stood firm like a wall. The deep waters congealed in the heart of the sea. The enemy boasted, I will pursue. I will overtake them. I will divide the spoils. I will gorge myself on them. I will draw my sword, and my hand will destroy them. But you blew with your breath, and the sea covered them. They sank like lead in the mighty waters. Who among the gods is like you, O Lord? Who is like you? Majestic in holiness, awesome in glory, working wonders. I love so many things in here. They sank like a stone. They just sank like dead. And also they're thinking, oh, we're going to go pursue them. We're going to have all the spoil. We're going to plunder them and everything. None of that happened. I love this verbiage right here. Let's read this again. They sank like lead in the mighty waters, because who among the gods is like you, O Lord? Who is like you? Majestic in holiness, awesome in glory, working wonders. Majestic in holiness, awesome in glory, working wonders. That's my God. Is that who you're believing in? I believe He can do things like that. I hope you believe that too. In your unfailing love, you will lead the people you have redeemed. In your strength, you will guide them to your holy dwelling. The nations will hear and tremble. Anguish will grip the people of Philistia. The chiefs of Edom will be terrified. The leaders of Moab will be seized with trembling. The people of Canaan will melt away. Terror and dread will fall upon them. By the power of your arm, they will be as still as a stone, until your people pass by, O Lord, until the people you bought pass by. You will bring them in and plant them on the mountain of your inheritance, the place, O Lord, you made for your dwelling. The sanctuary, O Lord, your hands establish. The Lord will reign forever and ever. When Pharaoh's horses, chariots, and horsemen went into the sea, the Lord brought the waters of the sea back over them. But the Israelites walked through the sea on dry ground. Then Miriam, the prophetess, Aaron's sister, took a tambourine in her hand, and all the women followed her, with tambourines and dancing. Miriam sang to them, Sing to the Lord, for He is highly exalted. The horse and its rider He has hurled into the sea. Kind of like the first praise song. The song asks, Who is like you among the gods? The answer is obvious. The Lord is one of a kind. He alone is glorious in holiness and to be revered with praises. The Egyptian gods had proven powerless to stop Him because they were imaginary. The final verses of the song look to the future. God will lead the people whom He had just redeemed. The enemies who stand in their way will be filled with anguish and terror and dread when they hear how the mighty Egyptians fared under His actions on Israel's behalf. The Lord will plant Israel securely like a mighty tree in a land prepared for them. And all they needed to do was to follow their king who would reign forever. So I love that. Miriam was like, hey, let's have a little praise party, right? She was so thankful. She got her tambourine out and all the women got their tambourines and they're dancing and they're just saying, God is the one who saves. He's the one that redeemed us. And she was trying to point everyone up to God, the one who just did that big miracle. The waters of Marah and Elim. Then Moses led Israel from the Red Sea, and they went into the desert of Shur. For 3 days they traveled in the desert without finding water. When they came to Marah, they could not drink the water because it was bitter. That is why the place is called Marah. So the people grumbled against Moses, saying, What are we to drink? 3 days later, they are grumbling. Then Moses cried out to the Lord, and the Lord showed him a piece of wood. He threw it into the water, and the water became sweet. That's cool. There the Lord made a decree and a law for them, and there He tested them. He said, If you listen carefully to the voice of the Lord your God, and do what is right in His eyes, if you pay attention to His commands and keep all His decrees, I will not bring on you any of the diseases I brought on the Egyptians, for I am the Lord who heals you. Then they came to Elim, where there were 12 springs and 70 palm trees, and there they camped near the water. Prayer is the proper response to needs and trials. Only a mere 3 days had passed since the Red Sea miracle, but unfortunately it doesn't take long for the human heart to move from thanksgiving to complaining, from tambourine shaking in praise to fists waving in hostility. Yeah, I remember even as a child being shocked by that, thinking, you just had the biggest thing happen to you ever. He parted the Red Sea. There was a wall of water on either side. The ground was bone dry. Your sandals didn't even get any mud on them. And 3 days later, you're like, oh, God, take us back. What are you doing? But we can be like that too, right? It's easy to look at them. But that kind of really helps me remember to be thankful for more than 3 days when God does a miracle in my life. What makes this reaction truly ironic is that their previous crisis had involved a water problem for which there had been no visible solution in sight. Here, when confronted by another water problem with no visible solution in view, they immediately forecast doom for themselves. Yet these people had clearly seen what God could do with water. Absolutely whatever He wants. We doubt what God can do only because we forget what God has done. Oh, that's good. Let's read that one more time. We doubt what God can do only because we forget what God has done. So remember that. Next time when you're doubting, God, can you get me out of this circumstance? Remember what He's done in the past. And that's why it's good to journal things and to make notes in my Bible. I do that a lot when I'm like, oh yeah, I remember as I'm coming back to read thing again, way back, in 2018 or, 2008 or whatever it was, God got me through that crisis. And every time He gets us through, it helps build our faith to get us through the next crisis. And also helps us not to complain because we know He's provided before and He will provide again. Maybe not exactly in the way that you want. I have a great vision of what my life should be looking like, right? But I'm still being provided for, and I'm trusting God every day. Exodus chapter 16, manna and quail. The whole Israelite community set out from Elim and came to the desert of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the second month after they had come out of Egypt. So for 2 months they've been traveling. In the desert, the whole community grumbled against Moses and Aaron. The Israelites said to them, "If only we had died by the Lord's hand in Egypt. There we sat around pots of meat and ate all the food we wanted, but you have brought us out into this desert to starve this entire assembly." A little exaggeration there. Then the Lord said to Moses, "I will rain down bread from heaven for you. The people are to go out each day and gather enough for the day. In this way I will test them and see whether they will follow my instructions. I have trust out there on the side." Here's the catch. On the 6th day they are to prepare what they bring in, and that is to be twice as much as they gather on the other days. So Moses and Aaron said to all the Israelites, "In the evening you will all know that it was the Lord who brought you out of Egypt, and in the morning you will see the glory of the Lord, because He has heard your grumbling against Him." Grumble, grumble. Who are we that we should grumble against? Moses also said, "You will know that it was the Lord when He gives you meat to eat in the evening and all the bread you want in the morning, because He has heard your grumbling against Him. Who are we? You are not grumbling against us, but against the Lord." My note here says, God is training them to trust in Him. So their murmuring is against God. They are not trusting Him, and they're not being patient. I have out here, they needed 4,000 tons of firewood and 1,500 tons of food, and their camp was the size of Rhode Island. Wow, that's a lot. I would not want to be Moses at all and be in charge of all those people, and that's a lot of food and preparation for every day. Then Moses told Aaron, "Say to the entire Israelite company, 'Come before the Lord, for He has heard your grumbling.'" When Aaron was speaking to the whole Israelite company, they looked toward the desert, and there was the glory of the Lord appearing in a cloud. The Lord said to Moses, "I have heard the grumbling of the Israelites. Tell them, at twilight you will eat meat, and in the morning you will be filled with bread. Then you will know that I am the Lord your God." That evening, quail came and covered the camp, and in the morning there was a layer of dew around the camp. When the dew was gone, thin flakes like frost on the ground appeared on the desert floor. When the Israelites saw it, they said to each other, "What is it?" For they did not know what it was. Moses said to them, "It is the bread the Lord will give you to eat. This is what the Lord had commanded. Each one is to gather as much as he needs. Take an omer for each person you have in your tent." The Israelites did as they were told. Some gathered much, some little, and they measured it out by the omer. He who gathered much did not have too much, and he who gathered little did not have too little. Each one gathered as much as he needed. Then Moses said to them, "No one is to keep any of it till morning." However, some of them paid no attention to Moses. They kept part of it until morning, and it was full of maggots and began to smell. So Moses was angry at them. And the maggots are a penalty for not trusting God. Each morning, everyone gathered as much as he needed, and when the sun grew hot, it melted away. On the 6th day, they gathered twice as much, 2 omers for each person, and the leaders of the community came and reported this to Moses. He said to them, "This is what the Lord commanded. Tomorrow is to be a day of rest, a holy Sabbath to the Lord. So bake what you want to bake and boil what you want to boil. Save whatever is left and keep it until morning." So they saved it until morning as Moses commanded, and it did not stink or get maggots in it. Eat it today, Moses said, because today is a Sabbath to the Lord. You will not find any of it on the ground today. 6 days you are to gather, but on the 7th day, the Sabbath, there will not be any. Nevertheless, some of the people went out on the 7th day to gather, but they found none. Then the Lord said to them, how long will you refuse to keep my commands and my instructions? Bear in mind that the Lord has given you the Sabbath. That is why on the 6th day he gives you bread for 2 days. Everyone is to stay where he is on the 7th day. No one is to go out. So the people rested on the 7th day. The people of Israel called the bread manna. It was like white coriander seed and tasted like wafers made with honey. Moses said, this is what the Lord has commanded. Take an omer of manna and keep it for the generations to come, so they can see the bread I gave you to eat in the desert when I brought you out of Egypt. So Moses said to Aaron, take a jar and put an omer of manna in it, then place it before the Lord to be kept for the generations to come. As the Lord commanded Moses, Aaron put the manna in front of the testimony, that it might be kept. The Israelites ate manna 40 years until they came to a land that was settled. They ate manna until they reached the border of Canaan. An omer is 1/10 of an ephah. I love that part of the story. It shows God's provision, but it also shows what happens when they grumble and when they don't follow directions. 2 months out, they're already grumbling, right? But how often do we grumble? So that reminds me just not to grumble. And interesting, Moses said, you're not grumbling against us, you're grumbling against God. And so when things don't go our way, we grumble to other people or complain. We're really complaining against God. We're saying, God, I don't like this plan. I don't like how you're providing or what you're doing for me, right? So we need to be thankful to him. The directions were really good. On 6 days, you're going to collect it. And on the 6th day, get twice as much because the next day is a Sabbath. Some of them didn't follow instructions and they went out. There's nothing there. They went hungry. He's like, I told you what to do. And then some of them gathered too much, right? And they kept it, and then they shouldn't keep it overnight. Like you're supposed to gather it. He gives you our daily bread. That's like in the Lord's Prayer, right? Give us today our daily bread. I believe that's kind of where that came from. Gather enough for Monday, you're going to eat it, and that's enough. But they gathered too much, thinking, well, I'll gather enough for Monday and Tuesday. I don't know if I trust God. And the extra turned into maggots. And so again, Moses must just be slapping his head all the time. Like, you guys aren't listening to instructions. So it's important when God tells us what to do, we need to follow those instructions. Yes, we do. And also be grateful. So I hope you enjoyed this section of Exodus. I really find it very exciting, all the miracles and also the complaining. It reminds me not to complain. So be joyful today. Don't be a complainer. Follow his instructions and come back tomorrow. Those are my instructions for you. Come back tomorrow so we can read more of the Bible 365. We'll see you then. If you enjoyed this message today, I would appreciate a thumbs up. I would also love it if you would subscribe to my channel and pass it along to other friends who want to strengthen their faith in Jesus. I would love a comment on what you liked and also future topics you would like me to talk about. I would also love to answer any question you may have about how to put your faith in Jesus, the Christmas story, Easter story, anything at all. You can contact me through my website, which is nancyjoy2u. That's nancyjoy, the number 2, the letter u.com. You can also email me at nancyjoy2u@gmail.com. Hope to see you tomorrow.